Behind the polished facade of the European Union, crisis is unfolding. It's not just a few bad apples. It's a systemic rot that threatens the very foundation of the bloc. We're talking about a problem so massive that one study estimates EU countries lose an astonishing 990 billion euros to corruption every single year. That's almost €1 trillion of your money, public funds, and economic potential just vanishing into thin air. This isn't just a number on a page. It's a direct attack on the rule of law, on democracy, and on the trust between people and their governments, and people are noticing. A recent Eurobarometer survey found that a huge 69% of Europeans believe corruption is widespread in their country. They have every reason to be worried. For the second year running, the entire region's average score for fighting corruption has actually gone down. So, where is this problem the absolute worst? We're about to show you, using the world's leading measure for public sector corruption, the Corruption Perceptions Index, or CPI, published every year by Transparency International. It scores countries from 0 to 100, where 0 is a corrupt disaster, and 100 is squeaky clean. The results are startling and reveal a clear pattern of decay in certain member states. We're counting down the 7 lowest scoring EU countries, a list some governments would do anything to keep you from seeing. The countdown begins. Kicking off our list, we have a tie. 2 countries sharing the 6th lowest score in the EU, both grappling with scandals that have crippled public trust. Greece and Slovakia, tied. First is Greece, with a score of 49 out of 100. An incredible 97% of Greeks believe corruption is widespread in their country, the highest of any EU member state. And it's easy to see why. The nation has been shaken by what's now called the Greek Watergate scandal, where journalists and political opponents were illegally targeted with predator spyware. The scandal reached the very top of government, shattering public faith in its institutions. On top of that, there are serious questions about the independence of judges and the fact that so much of the media is owned by a few powerful people, which makes it incredibly hard to report the truth and hold anyone accountable. Sharing that score of 49 is Slovakia, a nation that has seen one of the most dramatic drops in the entire EU, a stunning 5-point plunge in just 1 year. Experts at Transparency International point the finger directly at the government that took office in 2023, which has been systematically tearing down the very institutions meant to fight corruption. Their most controversial move was abolishing the Special Prosecutor's Office, the one body responsible for going after high-level graft. Combined with weaker penalties for corruption, this has sent a clear message that the powerful are off limits. The results were immediate. In 2024, police recorded only 50 corruption cases, a 10-year low, a pattern of impunity. Next on our list is a country that, despite joining the EU with promises of reform, continues to struggle with deep-seated political corruption. Croatia. Croatia scores just 47 out of 100, cementing its place as one of the EU's most troubled nations. A huge red flag is public procurement, especially in healthcare, where officials have reportedly bent the rules to steer massive contracts to politically connected businesses. This creates a system where we know is far more important than fair competition, poisoning the economy and destroying public trust. The country's own judicial system is often seen as a big part of the problem, inefficient and vulnerable to corruption itself, which makes it next to impossible to hold powerful people to account. While Croatia's anti-corruption agency, USKOK, has gone after thousands of people, including even a former prime minister, the feeling on the ground is that the big fish often get away with it, leaving the corrupt system perfectly intact. Scandals and stagnation. Now, we're getting to the bottom of the barrel, where we find another tie. 2 countries with identical scores, but very different stories of how they got there. Malta and Romania tie. First, we have the island nation of Malta, which has seen its reputation destroyed by scandal, plummeting to a score of just 46 out of 100, a 5-point drop, and its worst score ever. The reason for this freefall is a shocking case involving a former prime minister and other top officials. who are being prosecuted over a corrupt deal to privatize 3 public hospitals. A company with zero experience was handed hundreds of millions of euros in a deal that has since been thrown out by the courts. This scandal exposed just how high the rot goes and sent shockwaves across Europe. Tied with Malta at 46 points is Romania. While its score hasn't dropped, it remains stuck far below the EU average. Romania is a paradox. Its National Anti-Corruption Directorate, the DNA, became famous for successfully prosecuting a long list of high-level officials. The effort was so successful that its former chief, Lord Kadua Pavesi, was appointed the first ever European chief prosecutor, and yet, politicians keep trying to roll back progress. There have been repeated attempts to decriminalize corruption offenses, which were only stopped because of massive street protests. With its national anti-corruption strategy running out this year, Romania is at a critical moment where it either doubles down on reform or slides further backward. We are about to reveal the top 2 most corrupt nations in the European Union, and the details are a grim look at how democracy can be eroded from within. Before we get to our final 2, if you think this kind of reporting is important, please help us keep going. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next investigation. Drop a comment below. Is the EU toothless when it comes to corruption in its own house? Now, let's get back to the list. The second worst. At number 2, we find a nation that has been trapped at the bottom of the rankings for years, battling political chaos and a complete lack of will for reform. Bulgaria. Bulgaria scores a dismal 43 out of 100, making it the second worst performer in the EU. Its score recently dropped from 45, showing things are getting worse, not better. For years, the country has been defined by chronic problems with bribery and anti-corruption laws that are never enforced. Years of political crisis, with one election after another, have undermined the government's legitimacy and its ability to pass any meaningful reforms. Making matters worse, civil society groups who dare to demand accountability have come under attack. There have even been attempts to pass foreign agent laws, mimicking the playbook of authoritarian regimes to silence critics. This toxic mix of political instability and attacks on watchdogs creates the perfect environment for corruption to fester, the most corrupt nation in the EU. And finally, we have arrived at number 1. For the 3rd year in a row, one country claims the shameful title of the most corrupt nation in the European Union, Hungary. With a score of just 41 out of 100, its lowest ever, Hungary is officially the EU's worst performing country on corruption. Its score has collapsed by 14 points since 2012, a steady decline that perfectly mirrors the country's slide into autocracy under Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Experts point to a system where corruption isn't just a bug, it's a feature of the government. A key problem is public procurement, where EU-funded projects are routinely handed to a small circle of companies with tight connections to the government. One of the most notorious examples is the Helios case, where a company co-owned by Orban's own son-in-law won a string of EU contracts for street lighting projects that were later investigated for collusion. The EU has finally started to push back. In a historic move, it has frozen billions in funds for Hungary over these rule of law failures. In 2024, Hungary permanently lost over 1 billion euros in funding because it couldn't prove the money would be spent without it being siphoned off. Despite the pressure, the government has refused to implement real reforms, leaving systemic, state-level corruption deeply entrenched. From Slovakia's dismantling of its own legal system to Hungary's state-sponsored graft, the pattern is undeniable. A crisis of integrity is spreading across the EU's eastern flank, with Hungary, Bulgaria, and Romania showing deeply alarming trends. But this isn't just an Eastern European problem, it's an EU-wide crisis. The average corruption score for the entire bloc has dropped again, and even major economies are backsliding. Scandals like Catergate have proven that Brussels itself is not immune. The EU is now pushing a new anti-corruption directive to try and standardize the rules. But that effort is already in danger, as some of the very countries on this list are trying to weaken the proposals. It forces us to ask, Are these just a few bad apples, or is there a fundamental rot in the system? As citizens get more and more fed up, the EU faces a choice. Will it aggressively enforce its own values, or will it let corruption fester and undermine the very principles it was built on? The fight for Europe's soul is far from over.